War Room Sports, join or die. What's up, good people of War Room World, and welcome to another edition of Inside the War Room, 2013 NBA Finals edition. Like we told you on our preview show, we're going to come at you guys between every game to give you a short recap of the last game and, a short preview of the next game. So, I'm Devin McMillan. I'm here with my co-host, Jimmy Williams.
Hey, ladies. You see my Twitter and my IG. Holla at me.
And B. Austin.
Hi to everybody.
All right, so let's jump right into it. NBA Finals Game 1. The Spurs actually take Game 1 in Miami. Personally, for me, that was a little bit of a shocker. We all here on the panel picked Miami to win the series in 6. Okay, first thing I want to ask you fellas, the fact that the Spurs took Game 1 in this 2-3-2 format, does that change anything about your pick? About,
Yes,
Miami winning in 6?
It definitely does.
Okay, what do you think now?
Miami in 7.
Okay. Jimmy?
No, I'm gonna stay with my original pick, man. I still think Miami may win the series in 6.
Yeah, for now, I'm going to stick with Miami in 6 as well. I think it's a situation where, we don't like to throw this out there so early in the series, but I do think with that format, I think Game 2 is most likely, I think it is a must-win situation for the Miami Heat. I think it'll be important for them to go into those 3 middle games in San Antonio at least tied at 1 now. If they go back to San Antonio 0-2, I think I'll be here in between the next games, changing my pick a little bit. But let's go back to
going Shane Battier.
Let's go back to Game 1 real quick. What do you guys see as the reason the Spurs were actually able to steal this one? Jimmy, you can start off.
I mean, like I said before, grown man ball is something they got to deal with. When I watch this game, what I think about is the Spurs' mental toughness. And the reason I say that is watching this game, Miami had a couple swings where they jumped out by 8 or 9, and the Spurs just stuck with it. I mean, even after the first play of the game, for Christ's sakes, they got a steal, breakaway dunk by Wade, and you're like, okay, they're about to pour it on. But the Spurs are a very resilient team. They're very poised. And it seems like even within the clutch, they're never rattled. So when you watch the Indiana game, you notice a lot of times down the clutch the difference between the Miami Heat's experience and, say, Indiana's experience. But the core of the Spurs don't get rattled at all. And, I mean, probably has a lot to do with their coaching.
Right.
And also just down low, they have no answer for Timmy. And a lot of times it's not about him just scoring points, but the way he affects the game by clogging up space. He jumped in a hot tub time machine. He was throwing shots in the game. I'm like, I haven't seen Duncan block shots like that in years. But the fact of the matter is that he really have no inside presence. Chris Bosh has fell in love with the jump shot, yo. Like, man. I haven't seen Chris Bosh post up in about 3 months.
I was about to say that. Like,
he's fell in love with the 3-pointer, so that kind of changes the complexion of everything. Like, even if you don't score in the post, just make Tim Duncan guard you. Get him in foul trouble. He's hanging around the 3-point line.
I don't think he's allowed to go in the post, though.
I mean, because there's a lot of people out there.
He's taking the jumpers. He's taking the jumpers to the next level. He's drawn with it. He's out of pocket, out of control. By the same token, on the other side of that flip side, I don't think he's allowed to go down there.
But I don't think there's a lot of people out there, especially the casual fans, who actually saw Chris Bosh play in Toronto. And this is not the same Chris Bosh. He's also, he's always had a nice jump shot, and that was just something that was, a plus in his repertoire.
He had a post game too, though.
Just like we said when he first came to Miami, their mix, it kind of seems like he's in the way. You know what I'm saying? He gets his, as far as numbers go, regular season, he still can put up 18 points a game with his team. But his game has had to just totally turn into something else because they don't want him clogging the post and being in the way of the 2 slashers that they have, and LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. And I think it's basically to detriment to the team because Chris Bosh has a lot more to offer. He has a lot more to offer than to just stand out there and launch 3-pointers. And when they're not hitting, it looks stupid because you're wondering why is your big man out there launching threes, in important parts of the game. Like Jimmy said, I saw it the same way. Like the San Antonio Spurs are a different bunch as far as resiliency goes because Miami kind of controlled this game throughout the whole game. But little by little, the Spurs were staying in the game by not turning the ball over. They had 4 turnovers the whole game.
Amazing.
And then when the fourth quarter came, they just little by little just took the lead and kind of took control of the game in the last 5 or 6 minutes, and got the win. The big three of Miami only had 8 points combined in the fourth quarter, and against a team like the Spurs, that's just not going to get it done. These guys are going to have to show up late in games because the Spurs aren't just going to hand it to you with mistakes, kind of like.
Man ball.
Bielsa, what were your thoughts?
Much just to kind of echo some of the sentiments that you guys have laid out. Understand that the San Antonio Spurs had 4 turnovers in an entire game.
That's crazy.
What that does is show discipline, it shows professionalism, and it also is a way and a means to control the pace and slow down Miami's fast break attempts. That's where they dominate. That's where they create these huge gaps in terms of scoring. If you don't give them an opportunity to run, then they are entirely dependent upon LeBron and Wade slashing. And that's kind of to the point like where we talk about Chris Bosh. Now, you will often hear on the War Room, inside the War Room, us kind of go into clown mode and laugh Chris Bosh out about his alternative lifestyle, the faces he makes, the photo bombs, and the fact that overall he's a clown. But when you're objective and you separate that out and you really talk about his game, his ability, and his talent, Chris Bosh is absolutely a top 5 big man in the league and possibly top 3. There is no reason that you don't devise a game plan that allows you to attack Tim Duncan. At this age, Tim Duncan, he's gonna ball out. He's gonna let it all hang out for this series, and he's gonna rock. But you have to make him work. And if you're not gonna utilize Chris Bosh to make him work, what are you gonna do? Go to Joel Anthony? Go to Udonis Haslem? They're not gonna make Tim Duncan work. So it's incumbent upon Spolstra.
Spolstra, isn't that the stadium, y'all? That's the Palestra in Spolstra.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, though. I got your point.
It's incumbent upon him to utilize the tools that he has, and that means Chris Bosh has to go with Tim. It's not about Chris Bosh even getting 25 and 12. It's about him making Tim work, as Dev pointed out. If he's just going to be a jump shooter, he's probably the best jump shooter on that team, same as Ray Allen. But that you don't want him shooting 20 to 25 feet. You don't.
That's a big reason why it's difficult for Miami to hit the boards against bigger teams, because you have your only viable big man outside shooting 3-pointers. It's hard to get those rebounds. But I just think it's a situation where in game 2, first of all, it's going to be difficult to adjust against a Popovich coach team in the first place. But like Jimmy and I were saying like we all were saying in the first video, we're not just going to act like, Eric Spoelstra isn't anything. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's devising some things. But I think what happens on the defensive end with the Spurs, I don't think it was just Bosh. Bosh was, he's the set shooter now. But I also think that LeBron James wasn't aggressive enough. I think he settled for the jump shot a little too much in game 1 as well. I think he needs to be more aggressive. I mean, because you look at the numbers and you see that LeBron had 18 points, 18 rebounds, which is great because they need all the rebounds and help they can get, and 10 assists. So everybody will say, well, he got a triple-double. What more do you want him to do? He did his part.
How you do
but
it.
At the same time, I think, first of all, 18 points from the best player in the league world is really not going to get it in the final situation against such a good team. So I think he has to be a little more aggressive on the offensive end, and he can't keep settling for jump shots because they're not going to out-rebound this team if they just keep shooting jump shots. You got to make the referees call fouls. You got to do that.
Question for both of you guys. I've noticed that this is what happens with LeBron, or from my observation. In games like these, in situations like these, they rely so much on LeBron James and what he can do. I believe fatigue is now becoming a factor because you've played an 82-game season. Now you've played major playoff minutes. You're asked to play on the front line to rebound as if you're a pivot man or post player. So you're hitting the glass. You bring the ball up as if you're on the perimeter playing the one. And then defensively, they're throwing you on scoring threats and closing out games. Now you're on Tony Parker. He's actually said, "I'm tired. I'm fatigued."
It could be true, B. Austin, but who's going to give you that excuse? What fan? What media member? What
those that live in
coach?
LeBron's pants?
Yeah, who's going to give you? Who's going to give you that excuse?
They're gonna go with that excuse. Now that's not something that you or I believe our esteemed colleague, Mr. Jimmy Williams, War Room Jimmy, would go with. But there is rumblings and there is talk. The blame is being deflected away from LeBron and more so on Spo for not utilizing LeBron and putting him in a position to remain fresh.
Here's the thing.
Him to do too much.
Here's the thing. One of those. Listen, man. You gotta play. You're in the finals, yo. All that. I'm tired. It doesn't matter, man. Everybody's tired. Yeah. There was one point in the game where the Heat were up by about 8 or 9 points. They took LeBron out to get a breather. By the time he came back in, they were down like 1. So. Yeah. I mean, he has to stay out there. It is what it is. I don't care how tired you are.
Yeah, they're trying to stick to usual rotations, and this is a situation where it has to be all hands on deck. One person I give credit to Dwayne Wade because, you want to give him the injury excuse because you can tell he's not as explosive as we're used to seeing from Wade. But Dwayne Wade deflects that every time somebody tries. He doesn't want the excuse to be injury, so. He just acknowledges that he's struggling. He acknowledges that he's struggling and that he has to play better. Now, I'm going to get on him for that. Play better, dude. This is the NBA Finals. But, at the same time, if you've watched basketball over the last 5 or 6 years, you can tell that Dwayne Wade is not himself. But he's not going to get the excuse either. It's the finals. Play ball.
This is the NBA Finals, man. It's like you said, it's all hands on deck. They all got to play. Bosh has to. Bosh reminds me of the first time you cut school to get some yams and you realize you didn't get in trouble for it. So now you keep doing it. So now you go back to it.
Talking about his jump shot.
So now he realized I don't have to bang down there and get bruised up. I can sit out here and just shoot threes all day.
I bet you that he's working out with Ray. He's like, Ray, can you show me a little bit?
He got to calm that down. So that's one adjustment that I would make if I was the Miami Heat. I would definitely look to tighten up the rotation. And just play ball because at the end of the day, they still had a chance to win this game. But it's not just about what they did wrong. I mean, it's about what the Spurs did right. And we talked about how resilient they were as a team.
Big shot.
Held the course.
Big shot.
Tony Parker is playing great ball.
The best player in the world. All
right, well, look, we don't want to make this too long. So since Jimmy he segued us into Game 2, let's talk about that real quick before we sign off. I mentioned the 2-3-2 format earlier, and we talked about must-win games in this situation.
They got to change that.
Fellas, just real quick, do you see any scenario where the Heat don't win Game 2? Do you even think it's possible right now?
Absolutely.
Should San Antonio just send the players home and rest them like they did earlier in the season? Or do you think there's a chance? Austin, you said you think there's a chance Miami could lose Game 2.
There is a point where my man who has the window in the top of his head for the Spurs that comes off the bench, the super sub, he's just going to say, and that right there is going to inspire. That's going to inspire because they're not scared. They don't make mistakes.
Miami is something like 12-0 after losing Game 1 of a series. Something like that.
I hear that.
You can check up on that.
I hear that. And if there's any team.
Anyway, they are going to allow the Spurs to get out of Miami with a 2-0 lead. I just don't see it happening. If it happens, we'll have a whole lot more to talk about after Game 2.
LeBron is fatigued. They're asking him to do too much. He's tired.
So you saying David Stern put the call in?
Yeah.
Because if David Stern puts a call in, it's going the other way. We got to stop these Spurs from playing so well. All right. So
David Stern does not want the San Antonio Spurs as his champion.
So David Stern won 7 games though, because 7 games is more time for more time to get that advertising money. I'm sorry, go ahead though.
No, so we talked about adjustments. My little bit of adjustments, I think, as far as the Heat are concerned. Of course, we spoke about the jump shots and everything like that. LeBron's going to keep drawing. He's going to keep kicking, but I do think if his guys keep struggling, there's going to have to be a time where he gets a little bit more aggressive. On the defensive end, it's easier said than done, but Miami's going to have to find a way to force more turnovers. They scored 4 points off the fast break. They averaged 12 points a game on a fast break in the postseason.
Ball game right there.
Yeah, so they're going to have to try to do something to break the Spurs out of this clean, fundamental, superior basketball.
The big fundamental.
So predictions, game 2. Okay, B. Also, you already said that you think it's possible the Spurs will win, but do you think the Spurs are going to win game 2? What's your prediction?
I'll be honest, man. Nothing would please me more than to see the Spurs win this series. Mm-hmm. But I don't bet against Miami. The talent is there. The talent is amazing. LeBron is the greatest player in the world. I acknowledge that. It's painful, but I'm going Miami. I'm going Miami winning.
All right, and myself, I don't think there's a way they're going to let the Spurs leave Miami with a 2-0 lead. So I'm going to say Miami wins game 2. Jimmy?
Yeah, I also have to say that Miami will win game 2. I think this will be a nice long series, and if the Spurs happen to win this game, it won't be a nice long series.
They win this game, Jim. It's going to be a whole different conversation in between.
Yeah, shout out to
I'm gonna come on the show like this.
Yo, shout out to Mojo from the season ticket, because she said on her podcast, and don't forget to check out our podcast. Go to warmansports.com to check that out. Anyway, said on her podcast that she was picking the Spurs to win in like 5 games, and I laughed at her.
That's disrespectful. She doesn't respect you.
And after game 1, she kindly let me know like a couple games left, so we'll see what happens. But
Mojo is tripping.
But you also see the dance you just did.
Yeah.
People are going to extract that from the video and play clips after Miami run off 4 straight to win the NBA title.
So. Yo, and my response to them is, views are good.
Yo, here's my thing though. Yo, it's crazy because when talking about this series, you have people who kind of predict based upon their heart and people who predict based upon their head. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, because there are a lot of Heat bandwagon fans, but most people don't want the Heat to win, but they think they will win. That's the consensus I get from talking to people.
I love when female fans predict based upon their head.
That's how it is, Jim. That used to be how it was when the period of every decade when your Lakers were dominating things. People didn't want them to win, but you knew they were going to win. So
even with the Bulls too. Yeah, not when they played Utah. Nobody rooted for Utah, but when they played Portland, I know a lot of people who rooted for Portland.
Shout out to Kyrie.
Only dudes I knew rooted for Utah was cats with more than one wife. But we're gonna sign off with that.
Yo, I'm trying to do that. Go ahead.
We will see you, ladies and gentlemen, after game 2 to talk about whatever goes down. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, War Room Sports, on YouTube. Make sure you like the video and comment on the video, because we will get the conversation started with you and talk back. We sociable dudes. So that's a wrap for our Game 1 recap, Game 2 preview for the NBA Finals. I'm Devin McMillan. This is Jimmy Williams and B. Austin. Like we always tell you, don't accept mediocrity. There's a lot of mediocrity out there. And be steadfast in the war against ignorance.
I see you chumps on top.
Ray Allen, you mediocre.
Kuwait is the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys diversified and educated.